So hopefully one or two of those bombs went right in that cave and should have taken care of that machine gun and hopefully the Japanese soldiers that were in there. We were the first low-level attack on Corregidor. We came home a lot of times with bullet holes in the planes, which would explode and send up a geyser of water. Well, if you're going 200 miles an hour and hit one of those geysers of water, it's going to pull your wing off.
What was that like for you at a young age to be put in that position where, you had to knock out the enemy?
Well, it was There's an island of Corregidor in what they call Manila Bay. There's a bay that runs into Manila, and that has always been the biggest city in the Philippines. And there were big artillery cannons there. And so as long as Corregidor was in operation, it could shoot accurately at any Navy vessels trying to get into Manila Bay. So it had to be knocked out. And so this was a notable thing. Early in World War II, Corregidor Island was the last place that Allied soldiers defended against the Japanese, and they had to finally give up there. And those are the people that went on the so-called Death March and ended up at Cabanatuan and another place in the Philippines, but a terrible story. But now the Japanese had Corregidor. And so the B-24s had been dropping bombs on Corregidor, but they had a lot of tunnels and rooms and supplies underground. And so the bombs hitting on the top of Corregidor didn't affect that. So it was going to have to be attacked by the ground forces sooner or later. We were the first low-level attack on Corregidor. And so we had left on that mission. We were flying up around, I think, 5,000 feet. And we came up west of Corregidor and west of Manila Bay, part of Luzon, which is the island that Manila is in. It's the main island in the Philippines, is Luzon. And we came up on the west side of that, but there's a mountain on Bataan. So when we got behind Bataan, the mountain, so Corregidor couldn't see us, then we turned to the right to circle Mount Bataan and come back into Corregidor from the north. So that's what we did, and then we lost altitude. So pick up speed and get down to ground level, and we want to go over Corregidor, which is only 40 feet out of the ocean anyway, but we want to go over there at very low level. So we had gone down and picked up speed, so we're going over there about 240 miles an hour. And as we went across there in a line, not behind each other, but abroad. So we're going over in a flat formation. And we're both dropping bombs and firing, but we've just got to fire in general. We can't, there's not much specific for us to hit. But I happen to be the right-hand ship in this formation. And my peripheral vision, I could see the muzzle fire of a machine gun shooting at us. So being while we're flying formation, since I'm on the right-hand side, I can break loose and turn over and fire at this. It turned out it was a cave the machine gun had been firing from. And I could see that, so I could shoot some 50 caliber machine guns, but the distance was so short, I couldn't fire many. I fired some, but mostly got over it, and then just before I get to the cave, I dropped about 4 bombs, and the bombs we carried had a delayed fuse, so once they hit the ground, there was either a 3-second or 5-second delay before the bomb explodes. And so we'd been trained to drop these bombs, and they skip. They're going 240 miles an hour too. So they hit the ground, they slide along. So hopefully 1 or 2 of those bombs went right in that cave and should have taken care of that machine gun and hopefully the Japanese soldiers that were in there. Then I turned to go back and join the rest of the squadron as they're over Manila Bay. Well, it turns out there's geysers of water shooting up in Manila Bay, and it would have been artillery from both Corregidor and Fort Drum over on the other side. They were shooting artillery shells out there, which would explode and send up a geyser of water. Well, if you're going 200 miles an hour and hit one of those geysers of water, it's going to pull your wing off. So we're trying to avoid those, and none of the planes were knocked down. And so we eventually gathered together and go back. But anyway, we did a variety of missions there. What would happen sometimes where there'd been the report of Japanese in a village, and we'd strafe and bomb, and then as we're leaving the area, here's black smoke coming up from that village. Well, that's not Filipino supplies in there. That was a Japanese vehicle and probably a truck and maybe some Japanese supplies. So that's one of the things that we'd see. When we were flying over Corregidor, we were about 10 feet off the ground, but that was fairly typical of the flights that we were on. And the missions would be, might be 3, but they're normally 6 or 9 or 12 airplanes in the mission. And so we'd fly out on these missions, and normally we're not going out real early in the morning, but we're going out 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And we may fly to the mission at we'd climb up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet and fly out to the mission. But when we get there, we do the ground level strafing and drop the few bombs that we had. And our cruising speed would be about 210 miles an hour, and we'd go over the target at about anywhere between 210 and 240 miles per hour. Many of our missions were close ground support. We'd fly out to a place where the U.S. Army was fighting against the Japanese, and they'd marked their location very carefully to try and keep us from strafing the Allied forces, and we'd strafe and drop bombs on the Japanese. Some of it would be aimed at Japanese concentration someplace. So then there were some places where in various islands of the Philippines, we would strafe and drop bombs on what was a bigger Japanese base, where it was, we could see we could see the barracks and supply buildings and so forth. So some of it was that. Some of it was the Japanese, especially on the island of Palawan, had tried to kill all of the soldiers that were there in a prisoner of war camp. And so we dropped bombs and strafed there just on a Japanese base because what had been reported to have happened there. So there was a various targets in, like I said, Palawan and Cebu and some other island. Most of our missions were on the island of Luzon, and then turn around and go back home again. And we might have a mission the next day or the second day. We didn't really visibly see them. Now, even on that cave, by the time I came over there, they'd run back in the cave. Now, we did have a lot of missions where they were in trenches across from the U.S. Army. But you don't see them. They're hunkered down in the trench. And we're going, the trench is like this, and we're just flying over it and dropping the bombs and shooting and hoping you get some of them. And I've thought later, you know, if what they should have had us do is one or two of us come down parallel to this trench and shoot this way rather than this way. Going over this, a limited amount of damage. We could have come down like this. Of course, a number of those would be shooting at us with rifles. We came home a lot of times with bullet holes in the planes, a lot of bullet holes in the planes. And that flight over Corregidor, there was a hole this big in the plane, in the wing of the plane. I don't know what it is or how that got that big a hole, but it was there. It didn't hit a sensitive place, so it was all right, no problem.
You know, what was that like for you at a young age to be put in that position where, you know, you had to knock out the enemy?
Well, it was what we were trained to do, and it was the enemy, and I figured I knocked out the machine gun nest that if I hadn't, paratroopers landed on Corregidor about 5 days later, and that machine gun would have been shooting at them. So I thought that was a time when I saw I think I was very productive. But yeah, it's part of the training. I didn't find any problem in shooting at where I knew they were Japanese.
Hey everyone, my name is Rishi Sharma. Thank you so much for watching this clip. I'm on a mission to interview all the World War II veterans of the Allied countries. Please consider following and coming along the journey with us. Thank you and God bless.